Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants Hangout. My name is Joe Grabowski. I'll be your host for today. For those who don't know, Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants is all about bringing science, adventure, exploration, and conservation into classrooms across North America. Really excited today to be joined by Teresa at the Turtle Hospital. The Turtle Hospital is located in the heart of the Florida Keys, and it looks like it's a very nice, sunny, warm day there today. They rescue and rehabilitate sea turtles with the goal of releasing them back to the wild. And the Turtle Hospital, I believe there's 5 species found in the waters around the Turtle Hospital, but I'm going to turn things over to Teresa now. And she's going to be able to show you a little bit and tell you a little bit more about the turtles. Hi, Teresa.
Hi.
Great to have you joining us today.
I'm great to be here. Okay, so we'll start here with Caroline. She's one of our newer turtles. She only came in Friday afternoon. And so she's a loggerhead sea turtle. The loggerheads get their name because they have a very, very large head. Because in the olden days, when the ships used to come through the old shipping channels, they'd have a spotter on the bow. They'd see the turtle come up for air, and they'd say, "Log ahead," because it looked like a log bobbing up to the top. So the name kind of stuck. So she's sick because she's floating. So floating in a sea turtle is not normal because they eat at the bottom, they sleep at the bottom, they do everything at the bottom. So when they are stuck up at the top, they really are stuck. And when a turtle is sick, it doesn't matter how or why they're sick. If a sea turtle is sick, they float. And so we knew from the floating that something was wrong. So when we brought her in, we did x-rays, and we found out that she has leakage in her intestines, which is called an impaction. Typically, it's what happens when they eat stuff that they're not supposed to, stuff like trash and plastic. And so that'll get stuck, it'll block up their intestines, make it so that way they can't poop. They're basically constipated, and they get very, very gassy. So for the moment, she's just floating. So we've attached some Velcro strips to her side, so that way we can attach some foam blocks, sort of like floaties. So if she does float a little bit sideways, we can help level her out a little bit. So we've started her on some medications. They get lactulose and vegetable oil to kind of help grease up their intestines, so that help them poop. And then they get Metamucil or Beano to help them get rid of that gas. And typically, these guys are here for about 2 to 3 months. Takes a little while for us to get all of their intestines working again. And then once they're able to sit at the bottom, then they're able to be released. So she's got a while to go yet. But just like with people, when we get sick, we get very weak and tired, and we sleep a lot. Same thing for the turtles. So for the moment, that's kind of just what she's doing. She's just sleeping. And that's really what we want her to do. We want her to heal. And when they're sleeping, they can hold their breath up to about 5 hours. So she could be down there for quite a while. But then once she starts feeling better, she'll start getting a little bit more active. So like Tippy has been here for about a week, kind of same thing. She's a loggerhead. She came in with an impaction, but she's had a week of medications, so she's starting to feel a little bit better. And so she's floating sideways, a little bit more so than Caroline. And we use that as an indication as to where that impaction is, where that blockage is in their intestines. Because their intestines loop around like ours do. So when that gas and that blockage is on one side, they're going to float sideways. And then as it moves, they're going to start floating different directions. So it's a nice little indicator that that blockage is moving without having to take them up for an x-ray. So she's still got a bit more time. And then one of our other newer turtles is Francisco here. He's a green sea turtle. So the green sea turtles get their name not because they're green on the outside, because he's brown, but because they're vegetarian. So in the wild, they eat lots of seagrass and algae. Here, they get romaine lettuce, kale, green peppers, green stuff. And they eat so much green stuff that their fat, their insides, turn green. So it's kind of like you are what you eat. But he's been here since Thursday. He came in Thursday night. So he's doing okay. He's got some old damage to his flippers. So he's missing most of his left front flipper and the tip of his right front flipper. It looks like some sort of predator attack, especially the right flipper, because it's got a nice, perfect, like, half circle there. Most likely it was a shark, but he's still a little bit on the smaller side. So he's only about 60 pounds. So could still be a very large fish at this size. But he also has tumors. It's a virus that the green sea turtles get. It's called fibropapilloma, FP for short, and it causes tumors to grow on their soft tissues. So on their neck, their flippers, their eyes. So he's got a little growth on his eyes, all up around under his flipper. And so with that flipper damage as well as those tumors, he's just sick. So we have to do surgery, and we'll remove those tumors. And then once he stays tumor-free for a little while, he builds up an immunity to the virus. He builds up the antibodies. And then once he builds up that immunity, then he should be able to be released, even though he is missing a flipper. Typically, to be released, they need 3 flippers. So, but he's got 2 rear flippers and most of our right front flippers, so he should be able to swim okay. Once we get him a little bit stronger, we'll test him out and see how well he does. But so far, he's looking pretty good. Okay, but eventually, he'll get to be nice and strong like Bonnie. Bonnie's very, very active. That's how you can tell that she's feeling a lot better. It's just like people. Once you start feeling better, you start getting a lot more active. And same thing for the turtles. And she also has wicked appetite. She'll eat pretty much anything that gets put in front of her, which is a good sign, because that means that she's feeling better. Whereas turtles like Francesco, he's still got some breakfast that he hasn't eaten yet. He's still got some lettuce. But that's okay. Especially for the green sea turtles, because they're used to being grazers. So they don't typically eat all of their food all at once. Okay, and then we'll do Chuck Norris. He's one of our sicker turtles. He's a loggerhead. He's been here for about 2 weeks, and he was hit by a boat. So it's a pretty severe boat strike, but he's a very lucky turtle. It didn't hit anything vital. So all of his internal organs are fine. We're just keeping him in shallow water because he's still in a lot of pain, because their shell is a part of them. Just like when you break your arm, it hurts. Same thing for the turtles. So we're giving him pain medications and basic wound care. We're keeping that boat strike nice and clean. And so sea turtles, their shell is bone. But you can't do stitches in bone. So we do those stainless steel kind of strips, and then we glue them to the shell. So they're just like stitches, so that it's going to help stabilize the shell as it heals. And then as it does heal, it'll help keep it together as well. And so it'll probably take him about 6 to 8 months to heal. And we are expecting him to make a full recovery. He'll always have a scar because their shells don't fully regenerate, so we'll always tell that he was hit by a boat. But he should be able to heal up and be released. It'll just take a little while longer. So we'll just have to wait and see. Okay. And like Joe said, we are in the Florida Keys. So we are located on an island, which is great because it means that we are surrounded by ocean. And that's why the sea turtles like it down here, because there's lots of water, lots of food, plus it stays nice and warm all year round. And it's typically how we get our turtles is from the boaters and the fishermen, the people that are out there on the water. So they keep an eye out. So when they see a turtle that doesn't look quite right, they call us. And then we have an ambulance, and we'll go pick the turtle up. Or if the boat is close enough, they can just bring the turtle right here into our docks. But some way, we're going to get that turtle. And then typically it's the people that find the turtles, they get to name them. So sometimes our turtles have some very, very strange names. Okay, let's do a few questions.
All right. Well, thank you for introducing us to some of the turtles. Let's do the questions while we look into them more. So our first class, Mr. Manhattan's class. They're joining us from Thunder Bay, Ontario. They're a grade 6 class. And your microphone should be on.
So I'm going to start on the far end over there, and I'm going to come around with the turtle tail. Feel free to take a little bit of
most critical condition that still survives.
Well, Chuck is one of the more critical turtles right now. When he first came in, that first 48 hours, we weren't sure if he was going to survive. But he did. And so that's when we did the surgery, we stabilized his shell. But he's still got a long road ahead of him. But whenever the turtles come in, no matter what condition they're in, we always try. Because even if it doesn't look like they will survive, sometimes they'll surprise you, and they do.
All right. What we're going to do today is we're going to visit each classroom once and introduce them, and then we'll swing back for follow-up questions. So we're going to jump to Mrs. Snyder's group in Indiana. They're a kindergarten class. Go ahead with your question.
How many eggs turtles lay?
Each nest has about 100 eggs. So each of these turtles has the possibility of having up to about 100 brothers and sisters.
All right. And Teresa, do they just lay one batch of eggs, or will they be multiple in a season?
They will nest between 4 to 7 times in one season, which in Florida, typically nesting season is about April to October. But you will get to see a little hatchling in a little bit. We have a little early guy. I was going to save him for the end.
All right. Well, let's meet our next class. Mrs. Kaiser's group is joining us from Freehold, New Jersey. They're a grade 5 class, and your microphone should be on.
What was the worst illnesses that one of your turtles had?
Well, a lot of times the worst injuries are with the boat strikes, but sometimes it's not just one problem we have to fix. Sometimes it's multiple problems that we have to fix. So turtles like Francesco, the ones that have like shark bite plus tumors. And like Kevin here, Kevin, he was hit by a boat and he had tumors. So instead of Francisco where it got only one flipper, for Kevin he got both flippers. So he's still healing. We're not sure if he'll be able to be released or not, but we're going to have to wait and see. But at the moment he's playing with the vacuum. They do have nerve endings throughout their shell, so they can feel things on their shell. So they like to be able to scratch. That's why we typically give them little toys in their tank. They get PVC pipe. But when the vacuum's in there, he'll use the vacuum.
I love it. There's lots of other bubble bugs in here. We have Toasty,
All right. Great questions so far. Let's meet Miss Barry's class from Weatherford, Texas. And they are a grade 3 class. And your microphone should be on.
What's your favorite kind of turtle?
They're all my favorite. It's hard to pick just one. Like, they each have cool things about them. Like, the green sea turtles typically have very pretty shells. The loggerheads are pretty awesome because they'll kind of bite through anything, because they can eat crab, lobster, conch, anything with a hard shell. And then the other 3 species, they're just very, very rare, so we don't typically see them as often, which is always a cool thing when we do get to see them.
All right, and let's meet the 5th classroom who's joining us. Let's see. There we go. Mrs. Rodriguez, grade 1s in San Antonio, Texas. Your microphone should be on.
Their eyesight is very similar to human eyesight with a little bit of a flip-flop. So we can see great above water and blurry underwater. Turtles are just the flip of that. They can see great underwater and kind of blurry above water.
Sorry, it's just coming in really quiet. Can you try again? A little louder?
How long do the
Now we are the largest facility in the state of
stay
Florida.
at the hospital?
Okay. Did you catch that one?
Is that how long do they stay at the hospital?
But a lot of those places are also rescuing birds and mammals and things
Okay.
like that.
Well, that kind of depends on what's wrong with them. Just like for people. Like you get over a cold a lot faster than you do a broken arm. So same thing for the turtles. So turtles like Caroline and Tippy that just are constipated, they just need to be able to poop. So they're just here for just a couple months. Whereas turtles like Chuck Norris and Francisco and Kevin, they're going to be here a little bit longer because they've got a lot more to heal.
All right. Well, let's flow back through. We do have some classrooms who are joining us online. So if you want to post any questions on Twitter, just make sure you link it to our Twitter account so I know to look for them. Or if you're watching online, you can use the little chat sidebar on the YouTube live screen, and I'll keep an eye out for them. But let's go back to Thunder Bay to Mr. Van Hatten's class for another question.
What is the main cause of turtles becoming endangered?
People. People are their biggest predator. Like, they've survived for millions of years, fine, but it's only with the advance of people that they haven't been able to adapt. So it's the boat strikes, it's the debris, like the trash and the plastic that's in the ocean, the fishing line, and tumors. The tumors are caused by water pollution. So, like little Huckleberry here, he looks really, really good now.
Once you get to this
But when he first came in,
the rest of our sea turtles,
he was a mess.
turtles who will be released. They're recovering from tumors.
That was a tumor attached to his flipper. It was almost 1 pound. And he's only like 8 pounds. So that was pretty much 1/8 of his weight. So he couldn't really swim. And so those tumors affect kind of everything that they do, because they can't swim, they can't see, so they can't eat. So it's basically people. Everything that we do to the ocean and leave in the ocean has ramifications, has an impact on the animals that live in the ocean. So we have to be a little bit more careful about what we do and just think about what we do. So you don't litter, you recycle as much as you can. And even something that a lot of people don't always think about are balloons. Because if you let a balloon go into the air, it has to come down eventually. A lot of time it does that over the ocean. And floating in the water, balloons and plastic bags look like food. They look like jellyfish. So the turtles eat it, thinking that it's food, and then it makes them sick. So it just takes a little bit more thought on our part, and then we can help the turtles and everything else that lives in the ocean.
All right, that's a great question. And in fact, I was just going to ask you that same question from Mr. Haddle's class. He's watching online with his class, and they're in Florida. So if you guys have another question, send it in, and I'll keep an eye out for it. Back to Mrs. Snyder's kindergarten class. If you guys have another question, go ahead.
Eggs. Go ahead and say it again, because I don't think we were unmuted yet.
Have you had turtles about to lay eggs?
Not very often, because the process of nesting takes a lot of energy. So if at the beginning of nesting season, if they don't have enough energy to make them through that year, they'll just kind of take that year off. It's not like a sea turtle is going to accidentally get pregnant. And so the only time that we ever get turtles that have eggs or that need to nest are the ones that something happens to them either when they're nesting or in between their nesting. So like they get hit by a boat or they get attacked by wild animals, which doesn't happen very often. It's only happened just a few times since we've been here. We've been here about 31 years.
All right. Well, we have another online question from a grade 3-4 class in Waterloo, Ontario, in Canada, so just down the road from me, actually. And they're wondering where most of the injured turtles are found.
Well, we're in the Florida Keys, which is the string of islands down at the very base of Florida, a little bit more than 100 miles long. And so we're the only turtle hospital in the Keys. So basically we get all of our turtles from the Keys. We will occasionally get transfers from throughout the state, but there's about 15 other facilities throughout the state that can take sea turtles. So typically one of the other facilities is closer to respond.
Now, do you find turtles on shore, or is it mostly floating in the water?
Both. Some sea turtles are not quite as regimented as like dolphins and whales. It's not like they will strand themselves on the beach when they get sick, but they'll sometimes wash up on the beach, especially with the tides. But most of the time they're found floating. And even, let's see, little Ash here, he was actually found entangled in fishing line attached to a tree. So he's a very lucky turtle. He's one of those turtles that has multiple problems because he has tumors. So he's got little growths on his eyes and around his flippers on his neck. He was also bit by something because he's missing half of a flipper. But he was entangled in fishing line, and one of his rear flippers was attached to a mangrove tree. So he wasn't really able to swim very well.
All right. Well, let's jump back to Mrs. Kaiser's class in New Jersey. Your microphone's on.
How fast are sea turtles?
Well, they can be fast when they want to. So a perfectly healthy turtle can reach bursts of speed up to about 30 miles an hour. They can't maintain that speed. Just like with people, you can't go sprinting all day long. But to help get away from predators, they can put on a burst of speed. But when they're sick, they're not going to be able to do that. Just like when you're sick, you can't go run a marathon. Because we've got some of our turtles here in our big pool that are pretty much completely healthy. So like that little guy, that's Lawless. He's just getting ready to be released. But our big pool here, it's a little bit more natural for them because it's tidal. It's connected directly to the ocean. So it's got little fish that come in and out. It's got a rocky, sandy bottom. So it's kind of perfect habitat to get them reacclimated to the wild. And also for the turtles that cannot ever be released. And right here we've got Bernie and Sam. They're two of our bubble butt turtles because they were hit by boats. And because of that boat strike, they got air stuck underneath their shell. So now they float. And there's no way for us to get rid of that floating. And you cannot release a floating turtle. So then they have to stay in captivity. So they might stay here forever, or they might eventually go to a zoo or an aquarium, because it's really the only way for a zoo or an aquarium to get a sea turtle, because they are a protected species. You just can't go out into the ocean and take a turtle.
All right. Well, we have another question, Mr. Hattow's class online, and they're wondering, a two-part question. How long do sea turtles live, and can a shell completely heal from, say, a boat strike?
Average lifespan for a sea turtle is about 70 to 100 years. So quite a long time. And their shells do heal, but they never fully regenerate. So I'll show you Toby. Toby's a good example of that. He's pretty much completely healed. There you are, Toby. So Toby came in back at the end of September with a boat strike. And so in the middle of his shell, it's kind of knit back together, but he still has a scar. But on the very edge of his shell, where he's got that little notch taken out, there's not enough to knit back together. So he'll just always have a little notch. So yes, their shells heal, they just won't ever look perfect again. So he's got to wait a little while longer. Got to make sure that is completely healed. And hopefully his floating will go away. Hopefully it's not bubble butt. It's still a little bit early to tell.
All right, well, let's jump to Mrs. Barry's class in Weatherford, Texas. Your microphone's on.
What inspired you to work with turtles?
Well, I always knew that I wanted to go into marine science, because that was always my passion. And then as soon as I was old enough, I started volunteering with my local sea turtle nesting group during the summer. So we'd go out every day, look for new nests, keep an eye on the old nests, and then help them when they hatch. And then once I started doing that, I kind of got obsessed with turtles. So kind of just fell into place. I was very lucky.
Yes, I agree with you. I'm a diver and I love interacting with sea turtles, so I'm jealous that you get to hang out with them every single day. And the climate where you are is pretty top notch, so not too bad of a gig.
Yeah, as long as you like sun and heat, Florida's the place for you.
All right, so let's jump back to Mrs. Rodriguez's class in San Antonio. Go ahead with the question.
How long do you go to school to learn about the sea turtles?
Did you hear that one? It was how long would you have to go to school to do something like you do?
Well, all of us that work here have some type of degree in something science related, whether it's biology, zoology, or marine biology. So typically it's just a 4-year degree. But if you want to go into the more actual doctor part, like the veterinarian part, then you have to actually become a veterinarian, which is a bit more schooling. Or if you want to go into more of the research end of it, then you typically also need more schooling. So it all depends on exactly what part you want to go into. Because here we do primarily rehab, and we do a bit of research and everything else. But our main goal is the rehab. So the rehabbers that we have are kind of like turtle nurses. So not quite veterinarians, but they just do all of the day-to-day stuff. And then we have veterinarians that come in to do the surgery, and they do rounds and all of that.
All right, well, our grade 3-4 class is wondering where you are in the Keys, and I believe, is it Marathon?
So smack dab in the middle.
Right in the middle. All right. And then another class, the class who's joining us from Florida, excuse me, they're wondering how can sea turtles defend themselves in the wild?
Well, their shell is their biggest defense, because they're not like a box turtle. They can't pull their heads and their flippers inside their shell. So their shell is their defense. So when they get attacked by a shark, like Kevin, where'd he go? So it's a little bit harder to tell now because it's pretty much healed. But he came in with scratches all over his back. You can just barely make them out now. And that's because when they're getting attacked by a shark, they'll twist and they'll turn. They'll keep their back or their belly to the shark because it's a lot harder for their shark to bite them that way. Think about you trying to bite into a really big apple. It's hard. You can't get your teeth to kind of dig in. And same thing with the sharks, with the turtles. And so all that shark got was just a couple flippers. But he's not dead. But you can't really blame sharks, because sharks have to eat too. It's not the turtles' fault they're so tasty.
It's very true. So I think sea turtles are awesome, but I think my favorite species is the leatherback just because of how big they grow. It's pretty rare when you guys see one of those.
Yes, yeah, the leatherbacks are the largest. They get to be up to about 2,000 pounds. And because they are so big, they don't like to be near shore. So they spend most of their lives offshore, the deeper waters, plus they eat jellyfish. So they're going to be offshore where the jellyfish tend to congregate. So in the 31 years that we've been here, we've only ever actually had one come into the hospital, which is kind of a good thing, because trying to take care of something that large is not exactly easy. The largest turtle we have now, his name is Rebel. He's about a 250-pound loggerhead. But he's kind of hiding at the moment. He's down there next to the piling. But he's kind of trying to imitate a rock. He's trying to hide.
All right. Well, Teresa, do you have time on your end? Maybe we'll visit each of the classes one more time.
Yeah, let me just do some babies first.
All right. Perfect.
Okay, so like this guy, this is Bowser. He's almost 2 years old. He's a little loggerhead. But he's about 20 pounds now. So he's a big 2-year-old. And we know that he's only not quite 2 because we've had him since he was a hatchling. Because every summer we get babies in here because they've hatched out on the beach, but they haven't quite made it to the water. So sometimes they'll get stuck at the bottom of their nest, or they'll get disoriented by lights. So they'll get distracted. So they end up walking towards land instead of towards the water. So when that happens, they're not really sick, they're just weak. So we'll bring them here. Typically we'll just keep them for about a month or 2, let them build their strength back up, and then we'll release them. But when we can, we'll keep 1 or 2 of them kind of as a head start program. So we'll keep them for 2 years, let them get nice and big, so much greater chance of survival because they'll be less likely to be eaten. So Bowser here will be released this summer. But he got the name Bowser because he's kind of spiky, because the loggerheads, when they're babies, they've got spikes down their back and also down along their butt. And it's another protection because they're little, so they're easy prey for everything. But if they're spiky, you're not going to want to eat them. It'd be like you trying to bite into a pineapple. You don't need to do it to know that it'll hurt. But when they're first born, they're a lot smaller. So, other babies are in here. We got a couple of little baby hawksbills. So this is our smallest little guy. He's just a few weeks old, which is very, very rare for this time of year, because they don't really start, especially the hawksbills, they don't really start nesting this early. So we're thinking, because he was found washed up on the beach, we're thinking that he kind of washed in from somewhere else and was just a very, very late nest from last year. But we're going to keep him for the next few months. And in about 5 months, he'll look like this guy. So he's just a little bit bigger. And the hawksbills, like these guys have the very sharp beak, sort of like a bird beak. That's how they get their name, hawksbill. Plus they have the very pretty tortoiseshell pattern on their shell. And that's why they're now endangered, because it used to be that anything made out of tortoiseshell, like jewelry and glasses, that was all made out of sea turtle shell. But now they're protected, so now that's illegal. So now all that tortoiseshell stuff is made out of plastic. Okay, so now we can go back to more questions.
All right. Just a quick question about the netting. Is that for birds, to keep birds away?
Yes. Yeah, because the little babies, they are tiny. So our hatchling tanks, when we actually have hatchlings in them, we try to keep the covers down. So we get birds, and we also get iguanas. And when they're tiny like this, they're still kind of easy prey.
All right. Well, let's visit each class. If you have a question, go ahead. But if not, that's okay too. So Mr. Van Hatten in Thunder Bay.
Where do you guys get the money so you can get their medical supplies just to save these turtles and help them out?
Well, we are a non-profit, and we are open to the public. So it's pretty much anybody that visits here, everything you spend here stays here and funds the hospital. So 100% of our admissions, adoptions, memberships, donations, and then the gift shop sales, it's everything over cost.
All right, Mrs. Snyder's Kindergartens. I'll turn your mic back on. can you come a little closer? We missed that one.
Go right in front of the mask.
How long does it take the eggs to hatch?
The eggs are laid, it typically takes about 50 to 60 days for them to hatch.
All right, Mrs. Kaiser in New Jersey, do you guys have one more question?
Okay. How old is the oldest turtle at the hospital?
Well, our oldest turtle would be our largest. That was Rebel, the one that was trying to hide. He's about 250 pounds, so probably about 40 to 50 years old. But you never know exactly how old a sea turtle is because they don't have growth rings like a tree. So it's just kind of your best guess as to their size. But the larger the turtle, the older they are.
All right, Mrs. Barry's group in Weatherford, your mic's on.
Why do the turtles go to the light?
Well, sea turtles are ruled completely on instinct because once that mama turtle lays her eggs, that's it. She's done. She never sees those babies again. So when they hatch out, their instincts tell them to go towards the brightest light because that should be the ocean, should be the moon reflecting off of the water. So when there's another light, like a house light, street light, car, flashlight, anything, then that becomes a brighter light. So they end up walking or crawling the wrong way. And they end up trying to cross the road or stuck in somebody's yard or somebody's swimming pool.
All right, in our final class, one more visit in San Antonio. Our grade ones, go ahead.
What's your favorite part of working at the hospital?
Being around turtles all day because they're pretty awesome. And it's great being able to teach people about the turtles because I love turtles and it's great being able to share that with other people, especially like-minded people.
All right, well, Teresa, it's always a treat to visit the Turtle Hospital, and I can almost feel a little bit of that warmth through the computer, so thank you for sharing that today.
You're welcome.
Maybe just before we wrap, if a classroom who was watching were ever interested in adopting a turtle, how could they go about that?
Well, you get to adopt a turtle. It's kind of like a sponsorship. It's one of our 5 permanent residents. So one of the turtles that will always stay here, so they cannot be released. So it's $35 for the year. So when you first adopt, you'll get a certificate with your name and the turtle's name, a little info sheet all about that turtle, a thank you letter, and then a magnet to go on your fridge. And then every 4 months, the turtle writes you a letter, lets you know what's going on here and how they're doing. And then at the end of the year, you get the option to renew or pick a new turtle. It's up to you.
All right. Well, Teresa, again, thank you so much. Looking forward to our return to the Keys later in April on the 24th, I believe at 1 p.m. Eastern. But before we log off, I'm going to turn on the microphones and give the classes a chance to say goodbye and thank you. All right, here come the microphones. All right, classrooms, go ahead, say your name.
Look over here.
All right. So once again, Teresa, always a pleasure. Thank you to the classes who joined us live. Thank you for those watching via YouTube. And we'll see you again next time.
Okay. You're welcome.